holding now, middle of page 41, Mem Aleph, chapter 32 in Tanya. And we're at the first period. It's the fifth line, 3 words into the line. And the Alter Rebbe explains to us that the mitzvah of Avas Yisrael is V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. And this is the nekuda of his chiddush, that kamoicha means exactly like yourself. You should love someone else as yourself, meaning just as you don't judge yourself negatively, and just as it's impossible to look at yourself outside of yourself. What do I mean? The fact is that every yid, every person is who they are. The Gemara Yerushalmi says it best. The Gemara Yerushalmi says, when one hand hurts the other hand, does one hand get upset with the second hand? It's part of your one goof. So too, v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha is that every yid is you. It's you. Another nekuda that we didn't mention yesterday, let's say avas achim, love of brothers and sisters, siblings. The truth is, before shtuyot come in and people start fighting about inheritances and such stuff, but when you're young and we're children, then there's a natural love. It's not like I love my brother because my brother gives me a lollipop. I love my sister because my sister has nice hair. It's ridiculous. You come from the same mother and father, or you come from a half mother, whatever the case. So there's something called Ava Atzmis, and that's what the Alter Rebbe in this chapter is being mechadish. He's telling us that v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, the only way, Avram, you can have true unconditional Avas Yisrael, unconditional Avas Yisrael, is if the Ava is an Ava Atzmis, an essential Ava, not an Ava that's tluya bedover. That's the language used in Pirkei Avos. A conditional Ava. If it's a conditional Ava, we will never be able to have kamocha. We'll be able to help, and we'll be able to be nice. It's all fine. But kamocha, to love someone else as you love yourself, impossible. When is it possible? If it's an Ava Atzmis. If the whole idea is coming from the essence. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to explain how can we reach this state. And the Alter Rebbe says basically, because we're all one people. Let's look inside. Kimei achar, by the period on page Mem Aleph. Kimei achar shegufay nimes u'mesuf etzloi, since a person's body is despicable and disgusting, but to himself, the taivas, the indulgences and cravings are all disgusting. V'hanefesh v'ruach, and the soul and the spirit, mi yodeya gedulusan u'maylusan. Who knows how great and how virtuous is a person's soul? When you look at someone else and you say, he's a schlepper, she's a this, and I'm a this, the Alter Rebbe says, really? Ki miyodeya, you know about the person's soul? No, you don't. All you know is about their tie, their pants, their eyebrows, what job they have. You don't know about nefesh and ruach. And since you don't know about the soul, therefore, it couldn't be that their soul is greater than your soul. For some reason, it got verblunget. Verblunget means, lost. It got lost. It's temporarily lost. But when you reveal this soul, boy, do you have the greatest. I mean, there's so many people you can think of, but let's say Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg. Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, at one point in his life, in early life, he wasn't a frum Jew. For whatever reason. And then he discovered Yiddishkeit and Chassidishkeit and the Gina and his whole story. And he is today Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg. So someone were to look at Yitzchak Ginsburg when he was 18 years old or 17, whatever, 19, 20, whatever the age was, they'll say, man, no, a bright guy, a science student and very nice. But, what does it have to do with Torah mitzvahs? Now look at him today, you'll say, halavai, I would be like Yitzchak Ginsburg, right? So mi yodeya g'dei losan my losan. You never know. So therefore, since you don't know, don't be judgmental. Because he can have a greater soul than you. That's number one. Now you have to make like a comma after the word umay losan. Then the Alter Rebbe says, I'm sorry, not here. One doesn't know the person's soul in its root in the living God. Period. That's number one. Hello. Point number two. Bishagam shekulam masimois. And although they and also bishagam, not although, and also shekulan masimois, all souls are matim, correspond. V'yav echad l'kulana, and they have one Father. What's the Alter Rebbe adding with this? The Alter Rebbe is adding the following. This Rabbi Yoel explained, the Rebbe explained it's important to know this. It's Pshat and Tanya. The neshama has different stages. So one stage is that there are differences between souls. Moshe, when you think about the first point, who knows who's greater? You're acknowledging there is greater and not greater. G'day losan, umay losan. Great and virtuous, right? So what does that imply? Moshe, what does that imply? That there's a soul that's not great and not virtuous. And you don't know. So if you don't know, don't be judgmental. So that is not the highest level, sir. Why? Because that means that you're saying, kind of, in the Godhead, from Hashem's perspective, there's higher and lower. And is that true? Comes the Alter Rebbe says, that's one level. In other words, the Alter Rebbe here gives several reasons why being judgmental is erroneous. But the first point is, there's differences between greater and lower, virtuous and not. But you don't know. In other words, if I were to know, according to the first idea, Hillel, if I were to know if I had an understanding of souls, and I know, Hillel, that your soul is so-and-so, I would have a certain right to either love you kamaycha or not love you kamaycha. Comes along the Alter Rebbe and says, no, wrong. You know why? Because we all have one Father. Av Echad. Since we have Av Echad, in Av, before Av, Kula Masimos. Kula Masir is point number 2. We all correspond. The level of Kula Masimis means there is no higher and lower. We're all one. Yet, even this level of we're all one means there are two that are one. You see, there's a difference saying there's only one, and the third point, one Father, means there's only one. So we have three things here. Number one is there's a difference between higher and lower souls. Number two, there's no difference between higher... One second, Moshe, 1 second, please. There's no difference between higher and lower souls, but there's still two. There's you and I. Number three is there's no two. It's all one, because there's only one Father. In other words, so what's the Alter Rebbe saying? What is your perspective? This is what he's getting at. The Alter Rebbe is giving us a way how to have this Avas Yisrael Kamoicha, right? Because it's a very big struggle to love someone else like myself. It's very difficult. So he says, I understand it's difficult. Therefore, I want you to think about what is going on here with the soul the perspective of souls. Remember, the first thing he established in yesterday's shir was you got to look from the soul's perspective. That was the whole chapter 31. If you look from the body's perspective, you'll never have Avas Yisrael Kamoicha. Okay, so now we're going to look from the soul's perspective. From the soul's perspective, there are three different perspectives. One is, I don't know who's better and who's not so good. Therefore, keep your mouth shut and stop being judgmental. But from that perspective, there still is a difference between the two in the sense that one is greater and one is lower. The second perspective, the deeper perspective, is it's not about better and higher and lower. It's two. Kulam matimot. Masimois means we both correspond. So there's two that correspond. The third point is v'av echad l'kulana. We have one Father. From the perspective of one Father, there's no difference. It's not two that become one. It's only one. Look at his language. V'av echad l'kulanu. One Father. And that's the perspective that I have. And Rabbi Yoel explained with the mashal the Alter Rebbe brings in chapter 2 in Tanya. With the drop of semen coming from the brain of the father, then going into the mother, the 9 months, and then coming out, right? So the Alter Rebbe there says a similar thing. He says the Alter Rebbe says a similar thing. When the fetus is in the mother, the 9 months, there's already an other. The fetus is already a fetus. It's not born as a human, but it's a fetus. But where did it come from? It came from Av. And the drop of semen, as it is in the Av, doesn't give place for a fetus. It's semen in the brain of the father, however we understand that, right? So in other words, from that perspective, all there is the father's semen. So now, so too over here, the perspective of how to have Avas Yisrael at the end of the day, kamoicha, is to realize va'av echad l'kulana, and there's no differences. Not that there is a difference and I don't know the difference, and not that there's two that becomes one. There's only one. That's what he says over here. Moshe, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to understand this word, the lashon, a little bit better. With the word matimot.
It's from the Hebrew word matim.
Meaning like appropriate.
Appropriate, but
like they go together.
They go together. They go together. The two go together. So he's saying that you and the other person, right? We're talking about Avas Yisrael, love to another. We go together. But that means we go together. There is Moshe and there's Chaim, and we go together. The third perspective, Av Echad L'Kulam, is there isn't Moshe and Chaim. There is only Hashem. And Hashem has lots of branches and lots of things. And then he lets it all out in the universe, people and Damum Tzemeach Chaim Medaber. So when you talk about, let's for psychologically for a second break this down. When you talk about being able to have unconditional love, unconditional feelings, Avas Yisrael Kamoicha, is when you don't look at the other person as other person. It's yourself, because we're both Av Echad L'Kulana. In other words, who are we? Av. We are Father. The Eibishter makes Yiddish neshamas. It's one big neshama. As it says in Kabbalah, we come from other generation. I mean, all the Kabbalistic ideas, but the ideas were one, and that's why he says here this idea. The Rebbe once explained, if so, why does the Alter Rebbe have to say point 1 and 2? Just go to point 3. You know how you can have Avas Yisrael, v'yafta l'reacha kamocha, is because you think about Av Echad L'Kulana. Why is the first point, mi yodea my g'day my losan, and the second point, kulam asimois, why is that relevant? And he explained a very important point. And this is very practical too. If you don't come to a point in your life where you appreciate the person's individuality, you're missing Avos Yisrael. In other words, yes, we come from Av Echad, but guess what? This Av Echad says, Isser's a doctor, and he's a social worker, and he's an artist, and a sefer, and we are whatever we are, right? Now, can you have Avos Yisrael to the individuality, the individual? So the point 1 and 2 emphasizes there is an individual. In other words, someone will say, I have Avos Yisrael for you. You know why? You're God's child. Then ask that person, do you have Avos Yisrael for their idiosyncrasies? Do you have Avos Yisrael for their particular hairstyle? Do you have Avos Yisrael for the way they make daven? No. That drives me nuts. This I don't like. That means your Ava Echad L'Kulana is not true. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, point 1 and 2. Mi Yodeya G'day Losem Alosem means there is differences. We all are different. Yes, Moshe.
Isn't the Alter Rebbe speaking again? Isn't he speaking about the neshama?
Yes.
In other words,
Yes.
the Alter Rebbe is going to make a differentiation between the person's neshama and their behavior, right?
Yes.
Meaning, maybe they, maybe they're how they daven, maybe that falls in the getter of their behavior, or maybe if they wear blue hair, maybe that falls in the in the behavior.
Very good point. But everything begins with the neshama. Why does this neshama choose to daven this way? You're right. The behavior is the manifestation, but everything begins with the neshama.
Right.
So in other words, the question is, can you accept a neshama that has a certain orientation? I'm gonna throw a curveball here because it just came to me, so I'm gonna say it. Can you accept? And I had discussions here over Shabbos. Can you accept a neshama to the side of a relative? I don't want to say of a child, but of a relative who decides to become a transgender.
Again, that's their neshama. That's their neshama. How can I judge? How could we judge their neshama? Right.
But I'm saying practically. Let's for a moment, come down to earth. It's your own child. It's your own relative. It's your own friend, and it's like, what's going on over here? It's a struggle. We all agree. It's not easy. It's not easy. The Alter Rebbe is not saying that inappropriate halachic behavior is acceptable. He's not a Shulchan Aruch or a homosexual, whatever the issue is. This is not halacha. This Alter Rebbe is not. We're talking about the neshama and I'm glad you brought that up, Moshe. From the neshama's perspective, this is a Yiddish neshama. For some reason, this neshama has some orientation. I mean, I can explain it. It's brought down in the Arizal. I don't want to go into it. The Arizal talks about these inyanim, where there is reincarnation of a female soul into a male and vice versa. And maybe that's a possible reason for a transgender issue. I don't want to go into it. It's another discussion. And at the end of it, what?
It's too late. You already went into it.
Right. No, the point being is, do we know? I can tell you what the Arizal says, but no one knows. I'm not an Arizal. The Arizal knew. He saw soul. I don't see soul. I can tell you what it says. And it says that these things are possible. Right? So when we learn this shtickle Tanya, The idea is that you have Avas Yisrael means we all come from one father. Our souls come from one father, and for some reason, on the tree of life, the Eitz Chaim, there from there are these issues. That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't, work with someone who has these issues and etc. and try to work them out. But if I gave a very extreme example. I know that. But to make the point clear, I felt it's important. In other words, and the same over here now, right? Imagine now in Eretz Yisrael, what's going on? Imagine Netanyahu or someone else will make a decision that's going to upset all the Frum Yidden, So what are you going to say? I hate him. I want to kill him. There's a soul that's famished. For some reason, he's famished. Now, of course, we're going to argue, is the behavior causing the soul? So Kabbalah and Chassidus and Torah teaches everything starts with the neshama. Everything starts with the neshama. And if the neshama has a certain orientation, it's going to, and this we learned in the Hakdama to Tanya. Remember Hillel and Shammai. Why is Hillel mostly Mekel and Shammai is mostly Machmer? What does the Alter Rebbe say? He says there in the name of Kabbalah that because the orientation of Hillel is Chesed and the orientation of Shammai is Gevura. That has nothing to do with this issue and that issue. Now, we don't know. We don't know. That's why when a person believes in a tzaddik, believes in a Rebbe, there's a belief that the tzaddik does know, the Arizal does know, the Rashbi does know, right? So when you believe in a tzaddik, you believe that tzaddik knows something about souls, about neshamas. So, but the Alter Rebbe is not, openly discussing that. He's talking about an average Yid's relationship with another Yid should be with Avas Yisrael. Let's continue.
I wanted to make a comment about some of that.
Yes.
That seems to me kind of indirectly, maybe we'll get more explicitly into this idea, but that considering the last chapter talking about kind of, crushing the body, so to speak, and identifying with the soul, and now sort of saying, it seems to me saying there's kind of a danger in that attitude of sort of despising the body and its urges can extend to despising other people in the same way, scorning them in the other way. And it seems to me a kind of inherent danger in mysticism, in mystical teaching, especially like of any kind. That because you want to contemplate, if you want to contemplate the origins of souls, well, you can say, well, one soul is more highly evolved than another, one soul is greater than another. There's a kind of a danger in that. You can kind of look down. Well, look at that guy. He's had 12 incarnations, and he never finished his nefesh work. And it seems to me that that's kind of at the root of you like looking in Indian society, kind of the caste system, the idea that people with reincarnation are sort of born at a certain level, so that society has the right to caste them, treat them differently as a result, and also in the doctrines of Nazism, Yimach Shema, that the idea of a superior race. So it seems to me like he's sort of saying we should remember that even though we're sort of relating to our own body in this way, that it has these urges and we want to distance ourselves from them, that we don't want to allow that to sort of infect our attitudes towards other people.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I never thought of it from that perspective. Thank you for sharing. Let me think more about it, but I hear you. Let's continue. The Alter Rebbe now says, "V'lochein ikru kol Yisrael achim mamish." That's why we're all called, all Yidden are called, all Jews are called brothers. Mitzad, see Moshe, mitzad shoresh nafsham. It's because of the source of our souls, b'Hashem echad, in the one God. Rak shagufim muchalokim. It's only our bodies are different, but as far as souls, we're all brothers. V'lochein ha'esim gufim iker. Those that make their bodies primary, v'nefosham tfela, and their souls ancillary, yefsher liyos ava v'yachva amitis beinayim. It is impossible for them to have love and brotherhood, true brotherhood amongst themselves, between themselves. Ela hatluya bedova levada. The love that they have is only one that's dependent on something. It's conditional. And that's the meaning of Hillel's statement, Al Kiyam mitzvah regarding the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael. Quote, Zeu kol ha-Torah kula. This is the entire Torah is in this one mitzvah. V'idach, and all the other mitzvahs of the Torah, Pirusha, who are an explanation of this one mitzvah, Chuli. What does that mean? It seems to be a very perplexing statement. The Alter Rebbe explains. Ki yesod v'sheidish kol, excuse me. Ki yesod v'sheidish kol ha-Torah, whom, for the source of the entire Torah, it is, what's the purpose of Torah? L'hagbiya v'lalois hanefesh al haguf. It's to exalt, to elevate, soul over body, maila, upward, ad ikra v'sharsha, to its very source, the chol almin of all the spiritual worlds. V'gam, not only is it to exalt and elevate the soul to its source, v'gam, the purpose is also lahamshich, to have the soul then draw itself, come down, to bring down. The soul will cause for Or and Sof, for the infinity of God to come into the world, the Knesset Yisrael, and the Jewish congregation, spiritually, as we'll learn later in Tanya. Dahainu, b'moken neshamas kol Yisrael, the infinity of Hashem will come into the source of all Jewish souls, when they'll be one specifically, not when there is distinction and differences and divisiveness, God forbid. Why not? That God does not rest in a place of pagam, of blemishes, meaning of divisiveness and pirut. As we say, Borchenu avinu kulanu, Father, bless us all, ke'echot, like one, be'or panecha, with the light of the countenance, as explained elsewhere. So in other words, when do we have the Borchenu avinu? When do we have Borchenu Avinu? It's like you have to make a comma after the words Avinu. Borchenu Avinu, when Kulanu Ko'echot. When will we have Avram, the blessing from God and from on high, that he'll bless us, our Father will bless us, when Kulanu Ko'echot. And I'm telling you, Chevra, this is true. If we continue with Achdus and just pump Achdus and stop with the divisiveness and I'm this and she's this and he's this and all that, we have the Ashar Shlim. So the Alter Rebbe, this last section, he says, that's now, I'll finish with this, that's now the explanation to what Hillel said. Hillel HaZaken said that the entire Torah is encapsulated in one mitzvah, in Avos Yisrael. How could that be? The answer is, Avos Yisrael, I told you this yesterday, so I'll just make it brief. The Avos Yisrael is demonstrative that this one mitzvah of making soul primary and body ancillary. Because from the body's perspective, Hillel, there's differences, okay? Both, Moshe said, in behavior, And there's all kinds of differences. From the body's perspective, I cannot have Avos Yisrael. So someone who focuses on the soul, and the soul, Hillel, is not scornful. The soul, as it's in its pure state, in its pure state. When you focus on the neshama, then you have mercy, and then you work with people. In other words, if someone were to tell us, if someone were to tell us, this and this person, I used the example before with transgender, so I'll say it again. If someone tell you, from on high, that soul had transgender issues from on high, you would have a different perspective. You would say the compassion would be much more. What do you want from them? What do you want from them? Okay, we have to work with them. If someone wants to jump off a bridge, you try to stop them. The Rebbe said this. By the way, the Rebbe, I think, spoke only one time about homosexuality by a Farbrengen. I think I was there. And the Rebbe did not say at that Farbrengen that the argument that it's genetic is not true. He didn't say that. I remember we were discussing it after the Farbrengen. The Rebbe said, even if it is the case, that doesn't mean you shouldn't help them. That I remember. And the same is here. But the compassion on a person, whether it's this issue or that issue, I'm just using issues, whatever, is coming from a soul perspective. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says. That's what Torah is about. When we put on tefillin in the morning, and Hillel and Isser has wonderful, beautiful payas that I see, right? Payas. The mitzvah of payas is really the mitzvah, is part of the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael. Well, how? Payas means, others cut off their payas completely to look a certain way, and the Torah says, no, Hashem says, I want you to have a payah here. So what are you doing when you have a payah? What are you doing? You're following God. You're following Hashem. That means you're making spirituality soul primary, and the way you look ancillary. Moshe, right? The big beard, right? That's it. That's ruchnius over gashmius. Some will say, oh, Moshe, you look so much better without a beard. You're such a handsome guy. You're a macho guy. Take your beard off. You say, sorry, chap. It's a holy thing, right? So what you're doing is you're saying ruchnius over gashmius. That's what you're saying with every aspect in gashmius. When you do a mitzvah, whether it's the payas, whether it's the beard, or whatever else, it's all about, as he says here, to raise the soul to God and to make that primary. Which mitzvah out of all the mitzvahs demonstrates this clearly? When you can love someone kamoicha. If you can love someone kamoicha as yourself, that means that you're definitely looking at the beard and at the payas and at the ruchnius, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't look at them. You wouldn't want to be next to them, right? I come from this family. I come from this class. I don't want to be with the schleppers. I don't want to, what I'm saying? And that's why when you come across a yid, a rav, whatever, a family, a person who's humble, and you see that how the person embraces broken-hearted people who are not, people, who you would normally associate, and he doesn't do it because he's gaining mileage out of it, but simply because of Avos Yisrael. Attach yourself to such a person, follow such a person, learn with such a person. In other words, this person is. And I saw it with the Rebbe, really. In so many situations, he could have, and should have, No. He didn't make differences. He really didn't. He didn't make differences. Even that Jew that comes to the Rebbe, you've seen the video with Jews for Yoshka, right? So he gives the Rebbe a book, and the Rebbe kind of throws it away, because the Rebbe didn't want anyone else to. But if you listen to the conversation, the Rebbe tells him, "You're a Jew, and if you think that with Yoshka you're spiritually sick, and we need to heal you." In other words, it doesn't mean, hey, lovey-dovey, we're going to embrace everyone. You can do whatever you want. No, that's not Yiddishkeit. That's not Torah. You can do whatever you want. But we're going to work with each other, and we're going to look at the neshama, and people feel great that way. That's how we have Avos Yisrael. Moshe, you wanted to say something? No. Okay, Chevra, have a great day, and we should only have safety and shalom and Mashiach now. Take care. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.